let me tell you, Africa has got 50% of the world minerals. We are so rich. Southern Africa, we've got 70% of African minerals. Now, it's important we've got this, but we need to understand there is a, I think we'll come to that. There is a former, I can't remember his name, German finance minister in the 1930s who said, we cannot jeopardize our development because somebody stopped us to access mineral resources. We can even go to war to access that. Today in the EU, you know Europe has exhausted, depleted its minerals, but they still want to modernize. They want to create new technologies. They want to keep the life of their citizens, the standards. They don't want it to, so they have to access these minerals. The EU has come up with what they call the Raw Material Initiative. The Raw Material Initiative in the EU is to ensure that the EU is not prevented, is not stopped to access minerals, whatever they want. And when you follow the debate in the EU Parliament, one German parliamentarian said, we are prepared to go to war to access those minerals. So what Professor was saying about war is serious. So they come, they need to secure standard of living. But you have to put in mind, as especially policy, all of us, if there is a continent that needs development, it's the African continent. Now, why is it that us, we will sell those minerals that secure development to others? So there is a dominance, economic and military, technological advancement, building reserves. Yes. The problem of building reserve is an important one. These countries access our copper or cobalt and say they build reserves. They can even control, despite the fact that we've got the minerals, they can control the price. They can force the price to go up and down and so forth and so on. Monopoly, competition, control, and access. So we've spoken about the second scramble. We spoke about DBS contract. We spoke about clause of confidentiality in the clauses that when you ask, they can't give you. Stability, stabilization clauses, tax evasion. We've spoken about, we did not touch the illicit financial flows, which is corporate social responsibility. So these are the problem now. These companies don't just take, they negotiate. But they negotiate in a position of power. And there are various ways they do it. And when they negotiate, these are the impact of the things that happen. Oh, what's going on with my slide? Here it's correct, here it's not correct. What?
That is power transfer.
I told you. We can have power without point. There's no point. Oh, yeah, look at this thing. Yeah, I don't do, yeah. So I just wanted to illustrate something about how they take money from us. The investment in mining is done by, there is down here mining planning and mining design. There is labor, finance, and input and purchases, capital investment. So then you have assess tax, audit, and so on of this. So when they do this, they overcapitalize. They overcharge their investment. Then here, the under-invoicing of sales, over-invoicing of cost. So what it does, it gives us that. It means from above and from below, these people are taking our resources for free. And I told you the philosophy has never changed. From colonial period to today, it's to access for free or for very little price. And that's what happens. So as you are in government, you need to build capacity to deal with these things. And it has to be a multidisciplinary capacity of lawyers, commercial lawyers, of accountants, of economists, and so on, so that we start tracking down these things.
How about the political scientists?
Yes, they are important. No, they are important, you know. Inappropriate minor regimes, look, this gives us a little bit of the minor regime. Since we had high-price colonial mineral regime, pro-colonial, and so this regime was simply taken. We've spoken about it. High-price World Bank regimes ranked exceeds needs agently updated. The World Bank is the biggest advisor to our government on how to manage resources. And you know that the World Bank has got an arm that invested in these mining companies, the International Financial Corporation. How can you be an advisor and an it's a problem. High-price post-colonial regimes, we've spoken about these phases, I think. And low-price World Bank revision, overly pro. Today, the World Bank, when they come in to advise you, is to say you must open up the market. Let's state more market. Get out of business. Give, if you want to attract investment, give tax exemptions. Our economies are being wrecked. And us, we sit there, we think that we are in business. We are not in business. These people are doing business. So how are we responding to everything we have spoken? We are active. We are trying to think as Africans. We are trying to reflect. We've spoken about contract renegotiations. And there was an idea here where they said at some international regimes, when you've signed this contract, you can't review. When you read, we have sovereignty over our resources. And we have the power to change when it's not benefiting us. Liberia changed its legislation and its contract with MITA. The Democratic Republic of Congo has disorganized as it is. They renegotiate 63 contracts. But whether it worked or not, that's another matter. I don't think it worked. Across our continent, countries are renegotiating. They are assuming their power to do that. There is now nationalistic rhetoric. We want to nationalize. We want to own resources. The countries are creating now state companies. But a state company must be like a state company in Norway, which is business oriented, not be captured by politicians and investing in political parties.
Excuse me. Just take you a bit behind the first one of
Yes.
negotiating contracts. I would want to understand what triggered those actions in the countries you mentioned. I think that our challenge, for example, as Uganda, it's very difficult, for example, to get the government to talk to these companies to negotiate contracts because many people in government were beneficiaries of these bad contracts. So it would either take people power to push the government and the companies to sit on the table and negotiate. What triggered those kind of actions in those countries? Do you have an opinion?
Yes, look, it's a very delicate situation. The reason will differ from country to country. When we take the neighbor here, Congo, most of those contracts were negotiated during the war. The government was weak, and some of these politicians got money. During the negotiation of the peace agreement, it was one of the decisions that Congolese made that we need to renegotiate contracts. Then when they went into the government of transition, they forced, there were so many documents, but the politician did not want to implement it. But even when they start to renegotiate, you must find the political hand, what benefits they were looking for renegotiating. It's not just, there were some political gain. but they did negotiate that. Metal accepted because the railway in Liberia was owned by Metal. Every person who wanted to use the railway will pay Metal. So Salif, when she came into power, it was a priority to claim back the railway for people transport and goods and so on. So they had to take back, but renegotiate the contract and give something back in terms of taxes to Metal. But it was in a vision to take back the railway, to become a national property. And for her, it was a win to allow circulation of people and goods in the country.
So here we need to convince the government to have better vision, right?
No, it's, you need to understand the power dynamics. And there are certain moments where you can use the moment and capitalize on it. And those moments occurs here and there. Look, oil is going to be, has not been started, they have not started extracting oil. And there are just so many problems around communities and mining companies and so on. I think it's important to study very well. I think the government is not always very, they also want to benefit. You see, what you need to do is to say government to tell the companies that it's not us, it's the people. You come to a position where government try to get out of business, to say we are not asking, but the people, if we don't do it, your investment are in jeopardy. So we need to increase the sensitization and mobilization of the people to start demanding that. Very quickly, I'm finishing. We would have looked into the problem of China and the competition between China and the West, which is increasing. The critique about China. We would have done this group discussion, which we could not do. There is a problem of structural and policy problems. Chair, I just want to finish with these slides. There is the problem of structure of the global economy. The price of our minerals are fixed by others. It's a problem. When they want to kill you, they fix the price. They undermine your ability to gain. Africa's minerals are undervalued. African state weaknesses, we've spoken about that. Weak oversight of the financial remittance from mining companies to government. Conflict of interest, inability to capture the windfall. When the price of minerals goes up, we are not allowed to benefit from the rise of the price. We continue. If we negotiate a contract at $3,000 a ton of tantalum, when the price of tantalum goes to 6,000, the 3,000 does not, we can't get access to it. We think it's wrong. Because when the price of these commodities goes down, these mining companies want to change the regime. And we need to look into that, low revenue retention and so on. I wanted us to speak about the BRICS, but it's an important meeting just finished in South Africa. I'm just going to conclude. These companies wanted, there was a case of Lapset, which we wanted, you know Lapset, eh? It's double S there, so yeah. Do you know what it is? It's the oil pipe, something like that, yes. So the emerging interface between extractives, industry actors, local elites, and frontline communities. Free, prior, and informed consent. Do we know about that?
Yes.
It's an important principle for our communities. Free, prior, and informed consent. I think you need to research it if you have not. There is access to distribution of benefits, community shareholding. The community shareholding models, they are becoming popular. Each country might fund a model. How do we ensure that communities not just get this corporate social responsibility, but become shareholders in the mines? How do we ensure that mining workers become shareholders in the mines and so on? With this, why minerals are not benefiting? I thought I should speak about the asymmetry of information, asymmetry of agents, the asymmetry of balance of power, and asymmetry of consumption. These slides are going to be distributed. I think some of these things we've touched on. 10 imperatives for minerals and oil to benefit countries and people. There are some 10 principles that I've put together, which I think can really, when you look, each principle, it's a module. You can discuss them on their own right. I thought that we should speak about the African mining vision. Our reaction to everything which is happening was the adoption of the African mining vision in 2009. All our countries are signatories, they've adopted it. It's within the African mining vision that we talk very seriously about value addition and industrialization. So it will be very important for you guys to get access to those documents. We will have talked about these things, which are the value addition of minerals and the linkages. These are very important, and you need to understand these things. They also include the local content. Resource curse, can it be avoided? I'm saying yes, it can be avoided. Industrial, 3 phases, the trajectory of industrial. So in conclusion, I think I give this needs a developmental approach in East Africa to respond to the failure of the past and current approaches, put minerals at the center of development, moving from claiming to doing, graduate from an approach to methods and tactics to ensure that the minerals and oil, gas facilitate development. A developmental approach must respond to clearly articulated policy framework with clear desirable outcomes, which are the goals of the policy. You need to have goals. You need to define them. What you want out of your minerals, from vision, objective, to goals and objectives. This must be very clear in your ministries, and to ensure that the extraction produces that. I'll stay. Sorry, thank you so much.